Hi guys, it's Miss Bozeman here. Today we're going to go over reading out loud to students and specifically some ways to do that, some things that it can help support, and some different techniques that you can use to assess whether or not the read aloud that you're doing is helping them learn new words, right? So we're going to talk about vocabulary acquisition today and what that means. So vocabulary acquisition means learning new words and what they mean. And what we want students to do when they learn a new word is to file it, if you think about a brain like a filing cabinet, is to file it correctly so that the next time that they see that word, they know what it means. They're not having to dig around in a big pile of papers, right? That's what I see my brain looking like sometimes, but they know where it is. And the way that we do that is we provide context. Okay, so when we talk about context, we're talking about either the rest of the situation or specifically in reading out loud, the rest of the sentence. So if I am asking students to listen to a text, and this is not a text that I want them to be reading, right? This is above their reading level. This is not one that they're going to have in front of them and be following along with you while you're reading. This is literally they are sitting and they are listening. And the thing that I'm going to ask them to do for this assignment is we're going to draw. Okay, so we're going to do a draw along, and they can have a piece of paper. I've got a whiteboard. You can do it on a tablet if you're doing things through technology. So I'm just going to ask them to have something in front of them that they can use to draw some pictures about the words I'm reading. So when I choose a text for reading, what I want to look for is something that's a little bit above their independent reading level, right? This is how we're going to gain these new vocab words, because if it's right at their independent reading level, they should know all of those words, right? We don't say that kids are independently reading something until they're 98 and 99% correct with the words they read because of how important it is to know each of those words. So what I like to do is pick a book that I think the kids have some context for. So this book, we picked Alice's Adventures in Wonderland by Lewis Carroll. Most of my students have seen the cartoon movie. Some of them have seen the live action one. A lot of families have this book at home. There's picture books that they've seen before. They've talked about going down the rabbit hole and hearing those things. So people have a lot of context that goes along with Alice in Wonderland. Now, most people haven't read the old version, the original version in a long time. So there's a lot of vocab in here that we don't necessarily use very often today. Does that mean that vocabulary is not important? No. And does it mean that it's necessarily something that we can just move on from? And I would say no there too. Even if the words I've chosen today are words that I don't necessarily think they're going to be exposed to on a regular basis, they are still learning techniques to learn new words. So this can transfer to all other texts that you're using. Okay, so in this example, like I said, we're reading Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, and I'm just going to pick a really short piece here, and I'm going to read it out loud. And what I want you guys to do as parents is kind of listen for some of the words that you don't think your students are hearing that often, okay? And again, this is an excerpt from the last page. So she's imagining herself being in Wonderland again after she's returned home, okay? So she sat on with closed eyes and half believed herself in Wonderland, though she knew she had but to open them again, and all would change to dull reality. The grass would be only rustling in the wind, and the pools rippling to the waving of the reeds. The rattling teacups would change to tinkling sheep bells, and the queen's shrill cries to the voice of the shepherd boy, and the sneeze of the baby, the shriek of the griffin. Okay, so I've now given at least 12 words that I don't think my students encounter on a regular basis. Now I teach elementary school, so they're a little different than if you were doing middle or high school. Okay, but I'm not only giving words, I'm giving phrases. Half believed, right? She half believed herself to be in Wonderland. Is that something that our students know and understand, right? We're using the queen's shrill cries. We're using the shriek of a griffin, the sneeze of a baby, tinkling sheep bells, rattling teacups, right? I'm giving a ton of adjectives in here too. So what I want students to be doing while I'm reading that is for them to have whatever their draw along format is and just be doodling some pictures of things that they think. Now, one, This is great because it involves multiple pathways of learning, right? We're now using our motor skills. We're potentially asking them to cross the midline if they're writing. We're accessing some more of our kinesthetic and hands-on learners so that this information isn't just going in auditorially, because we have a lot of students that don't learn very well that way. But now we're asking them to bring in all these other pieces. And the nice thing is when you get the picture at the end, it gives you the information of whether or not they understood you. So if I was reading and we got to this part where it says, and the pool rippling to the waving of the reeds, right? There's a lot of words there. And if a student were to show me their picture and it was a pool waving, right? That's my hand, sorry. I know that they're not sure what's going on here. Okay, I know that this is something that I need to go back and reteach. Okay, so what do? How do I do that? After they finish their draw along and they share it with you, if you see certain pieces that are incorrect, so they did not know what the term waving meant in terms of water, you're going to go back and you're going to model the draw along yourself. You're not going to correct anybody. I'm not going to tell them that they're wrong. I'm not going to tell them they have to fix it, right? But you're going to model what that word should be. So if I'm reading out loud and I get to the pool rippling to the waving of the reeds, right? My pool is rippling, right? It's not a flat surface. I've got rippling water here. And this is my pool or my pond. And I've got some reeds over here, right? These are plants and they're kind of waving. And maybe there's a little bit of a breeze coming through that they can see. And I'm just going to show them what I want them to understand from the text. Now, you can do this with any text. It doesn't have to be a fairy tale. It doesn't have to be something they have context with. I just like to pick things that I know that they've had a little bit of exposure to, so I'm not asking them to learn a whole new thing. Okay, and so you do your version too if you're having to reteach. And then you're going to go back and you're going to read it again and you're going to let them do a new picture. You're not going to tell them the old one is wrong. You're not going to tell them to fix it. You're just going to say, all right, let's do another one. Okay, let's listen for something else today. And you're going to see what words they know and what words they don't. And sometimes just the lack of inclusion in your draw along shows you that they don't know a word. So if I'm using the word griffin and I've yet to see a student draw something, right? And it doesn't need to be perfect. My griffin would probably come up looking like a chicken, right? But if I see a student do this, I know that they've got a little bit of understanding as to what a griffin is. They know it's an animal. Perfect. That's all they need to know for this story, okay? And you're just really looking for them to model to you that they understand what you're doing. Now, again, you can do this with a super short text, a short story, a fairy tale. You can do it with just certain passages. And the primary way that they're going to learn this new vocabulary is through hearing it. So that is how to do a draw along activity. And again, there are tons of examples out there online if you need them that can help you go through the steps. And this activity is especially really great for students with dyslexia or language-based learning disabilities because you're not asking them to do reading, right? Which is what so many of our students say that they get frustrated with. It's hard, it's taxing. You're just asking them to listen and to create this idea of the words in their own mind so that they can represent them. So that's our draw along activity. And if you have any questions, hopefully this answered them. Thanks.